Welcome to She Moves Bravely, a podcast dedicated to empowering women through stories of resilience, courage, and success. I'm your host, Shantae Dent. Today, I have the honor of introducing you to a woman who moves bravely. Her name is Daniela Wolfe. Daniela, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Shantae, for having me. I'm excited to chat today.
I get excited as well, just excited about the opportunity for another woman to transparently share what she has overcome. We sometimes will minimize our battle, our struggle, and minimize all that it took to experience freedom. And also, I believe the best outcome is when we can thrive individually, but when we can share our stories and be the light of hope, a light of inspiration for someone else. So I'm so grateful to have you here today, and our audience is in for a treat. So Daniela, go ahead. Let's just start with what have you overcome? What has brought you to where you are today?
Thank you, Shantae. And absolutely, I think a lot of times they see where we are today and think, oh, must be nice. Like it was so easy to get here, not recognizing the journey and where we started and all those types of things. And so, my journey actually started probably about 18 years ago. So even though I've been a social worker for 27 years, I've been doing that. So I'm clinically trained in all things mindfulness, stress management, coping skills, and all those types of things. I kind of didn't always practice what I preach. I think a lot of times we do that. We're so good at helping others and don't always take that same time to focus on ourselves. And so about 18 years ago, I went through a divorce. So I was a single mom with a 4-year-old and 6-month-old, which was hard in general. In my family, nobody had gotten a divorce before. I was that first person. And definitely, I think I had a lot of my own limiting beliefs about it when it came to what people were going to think, what they were going to assume, how I was going to be judged, how my kids even were going to be perceived because, oh, they came from a single parent household and things like that. And so, unfortunately, this translated for me into needing to do it all, be it all, take on everything, and feeling like I had to be that person to break not even these real stereotypes, but what I assumed in my head, were these expectations from other people. And I found the more I did that, trying to show I could handle everything without asking for help and be all these things. I wasn't taking time for myself. I was irritable. I was snapping. I was not the parent or the person that I wanted to be, that I wanted to show up as, that I wanted my kids to get to know. And I kind of hit a wall. We were in the middle of this surprise storm. We were without power for 5 days. I was bailing out my sump pump with a bucket. And I was like, this isn't working. This is not who we are meant to be. And so I started after that taking some small steps. I started, asking for help. I let my neighbor help me with a bunch of things. I started a daily gratitude practice of just listing 5 things every day I was grateful for. I used the childcare at a gym that I joined to take some time for myself. We had free childcare at the grocery store at that point. And I realized by just taking some of these small little steps and actions, not only was I starting to feel better, but my kids were too. As they were growing, they could share with me what they did, who they saw. I was happier, laughing. We were just kind of creating this new path for ourselves. And I realized as I was going along, people were asking what I was doing, how was I achieving this, or sharing with me their own moments of things they did for themselves because of what I said or did, and realized I think we were all kind of looking for that validation and permission to take that time to take care of ourselves. Like I said, fast forward now, my kids are 22 and 18, and we talk about, those moments at times, whether it was one of my hot mess moments, which, I'm human, it still happened, or just even the practices they do now because of what I modeled for them, because of who they saw. They learned this is how I need to start to take care of myself. And I think we don't always recognize that impact we have on our kids by not just what we say, but by the actions we take and what we do. And, so they've been able to learn and integrate a lot of that for themselves now, as well as young adults. So that's kind of my story and what I've been through and where I am now.
Well, Daniela, thank you. And I love how you are sharing how influential you were to your children, even in the midst of a situation that you did not anticipate. And, when children are involved, a lot of times that is our drive. We realize that we have to make moves for our children. Now, I love and would love for you to elaborate. You shared two things that stood out. You talked about the difficulty leading up to the divorce because no one in your family had divorced. I would love for you to share a little bit about what was going on internally that
Mhm.
gave you everything you needed, the tools or the resource to make that move.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, my parents are first generation, they grew up in Sicily, so I'm a first generation American, like, and so culturally, that just wasn't part of what, I was raised to believe as when it came to marriage. I think just some different life circumstances I'm not going to get into, kind of left me though, recognizing that was the choice I needed to make for my kids and for me as far as being in a healthy relationship, them seeing, now looking back, you could say, they see now two happy parents versus a couple that was not great together. And so that was kind of what led me to doing that. But again, I think recognizing we don't have to do things alone is part of what I learned a lot from that experience.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes the things that we look at the time as some of the hardest things we go through help bring out our biggest strengths.
It's true. And I'm with you, especially when you talk about our mindset, our beliefs, just something that wasn't ideal. And when it comes to divorce, I know it's a sensitive subject for a lot of people. At the end of the day, we often say no one gets married saying, I can't wait until this ends. I can't wait until I get a divorce. And, unfortunately, things happen. And there are seasons where we have to reflect and say, is this the best choice to, proceed in this marriage or not? And I just wanted to touch on that because I imagine there are women listening who are wondering, should I stay or should I leave? And having to go through that process of making a decision. And if there are children involved, that adds another layer indeed. And so thank you for elaborating a bit on even with the dynamics of your family and your beliefs, you knew within it was time to make a healthy decision for you, for your children. Now, Daniela, talking about your mindset, you said something that I kind of chuckled at because I get it. We justify, we minimize, we come up with all of the scenarios, but they're in our mind.
Oh yeah.
And it's not realistic. Share a little bit more about what that was like for you.
Growing up, where divorce wasn't talked about as, it was almost a little bit more taboo, something, that you didn't obviously plan for, but you didn't necessarily do. That wasn't something I thought was going to be at least supported, even as me personally, like were people going to support me in that decision? And so I think when we have the expectation of, what we want for ourselves and for our kids, and our path doesn't always support that, how do we kind of try and compensate for it? What kind of actions do we take to show this doesn't define me? This doesn't define my family, my kids, just because of that outward expectation, as well as, when it comes to burnout, one of the principles I teach is it doesn't always come from things we don't like and don't enjoy. It can come from the things we're most passionate about. And for me at that time in my life, my kids were my passion. And when we are so invested in our passions, whether it's our kids, our business, a new relationship, we can get rid of our boundaries, which are part of that preventative factor in keeping us from getting burnout. And so I had let my boundaries go because I was 24/7 focused on them, not going out, only spending my time with them, around them, or doing things for them. And that wasn't to their benefit. That wasn't to my benefit. And by taking that time for that self-care and time for myself really does benefit yourself and everyone around you.
It does. And you mentioned, Daniela, opening up to the people who are willing to help you. people who wanted to support you. I love that because we oftentimes get into a space of wanting to create what we call boundaries, but they're really brick walls and it's not healthy. But you are sharing that you were able to make that transition to say, wait, hold on. Even in the good that I'm doing, if I don't put a healthy boundary in place, I will experience burnout. And I love that you're being realistic, even when it's a good thing. My career, my passion, my children. We love our children. And so, yeah, there's still
Too much
uh,
of a good thing.
too much of a good thing. So, yes, there's still a great deal of importance that we establish healthy boundaries. Now, Daniela, you started by sharing your years in the industry as a social worker, and I know a little bit about you, and you are doing incredibly well with your practice of coaching women. I would love for you to share a little bit about what you're doing today.
Sure. So, in addition to still working full time as a social worker, I love doing that and have I practice with that. As a burnout coach and self care strategist, I'm helping women and business owners and businesses really kind of invest back in yourself. Recognize that being overwhelmed and stressed is chronically leading to that place of burnout, and helping us to see that the benefits of prioritizing ourselves, whether it's professionally, are going to increase your productivity, your creativity, your revenue. Personally, it's going to increase your relationships, your stress levels, your tolerance levels, your resiliency, all those benefits, and help you really structure your day in a way that feels good, so that at the end of the day, you're not going through the list of things you should have done, or feeling guilty, or having all these things left on your to-do list, but really recognizing what the priority needs to be for the day, as well as then how to integrate self-care throughout your entire day. It's more than just the spa days and the bubble baths, but it's everything from how you sleep, how you eat, how you move, how you connect with others, how you decorate and organize your home. And recognizing there are ways to implement these 15-minute, 20 minutes, whatever you have available, even sometimes 1-minute practices throughout your entire day. So you stay constantly recharged, energized, because it's not like, it's like eating, sleeping, brushing your teeth. You need to do it consistently, not just for 1 hour on a Saturday and think it's going to last all week. That'd be like eating on Sunday and thinking you won't be hungry by Tuesday. So, recognizing we need to plug ourselves in like we do our phones, recharge on a regular basis, and start recognizing you can live that lifestyle you have thought about, dreamed about, really want to, when you make some of these intentional changes. And that's part of how I help women specifically, and just clients in general, kind of go through their mindset, their time planning, and their self-care.
I love it. That's incredible and impactful. Daniela, I met you because I had the privilege of being a guest on your podcast, which is Best D Life with Daniela. You all want to check her podcast out for sure.
Shantae's interview is fantastic.
Well, we definitely had a great time having our conversation, helping you find the bliss in your busy. So I loved our conversation, and you actually made a statement that reminded me of what we talked about when it comes to self-care. And I love that you do this in your work, your line of work, because it's important, it's essential, and I believe sometimes we have a misunderstanding. Some of us, we hear self-care and we think, I'm going to the nail salon, I'm going to the spa, I'm getting my hair done. And we both understand that is a part of self-care. It's a layer.
Yep.
But self-care is so much more. And you alluded to the importance of taking care of yourself as it relates to how you communicate with others. Mm-hmm. Daniela, take a moment, if you don't mind, and share with our audience why that is so important, why self-care goes beyond me. It's important to start there, but why is it so important to incorporate self-care when it comes to whether it's our personal or professional relationships?
Mhm. Absolutely, because I think self-care, it gets a bad rap. It's seen as a luxury, as something that's not essential, or that word self, we think it's got to be done alone or in isolation, and that's not necessarily the case. Self-care is doing the things that make you feel good about yourself, that light you up, that energize you. And that's the whole point of self-care, is to kind of recharge you, whether you're an introvert, extrovert. There's so many different ways to incorporate these things. And definitely connecting with others is a huge part of that, because we share that energy. We are energetic beings. And whether it's, one thing I noticed specifically, even during COVID, one of the kind of negative side effects of that isolation was not just not seeing people, but not even being around people, because we don't even recognize the impact of maybe just standing in line in the grocery store, hearing some laughter, hearing a conversation, that casual interchange with the cashier. That's still a transference of energy. You still can walk away just from being around people in a better mood, in a better way. And so it again affects our self-care when we're connecting with others, then intentionally, the ones we know light us up, the ones we know we enjoy being around, our family, our friends. And so taking the time to do that is part of your self-care. And it doesn't have to be, always a big dinner out. It could be a phone call on your commute back and forth from work. It could be a text message. Hey, I was thinking about you. Sometimes it's about giving to other people. Volunteering can be part of your self-care, because you're still connecting with others. So there's so many ways to incorporate that communication and connection to increase your self-care and your self-worth, or kind of self-confidence. That's the word I wanted.
Yes, that's true. That ties in as well. Self-care and self-confidence. I love it. So
Mm-hmm.
I am amazed with how life unfolds in such a beautiful way, because when I hear you sharing details about your coaching, and even, in this industry as a social worker, I can't help but to connect those dots where you overcame your own struggles. And as we know in life, we're going through something on different levels in every season of our life. But on a grand scale of things, navigating through divorce, showing up to be the woman you knew that you needed to be for yourself and for your children. And we earlier heard the testimonial of how you all talked today about what they saw in you. You modeled behavior for your children, and what a powerful outcome, to where they saw how their mom navigated through this situation, that definitely, as I see today, led you to becoming an amazing and incredible woman. And so, Daniela, when you consider where you've been, the journey, and where you are today, I want to give you an opportunity to just share your heart with that woman who might be struggling, and perhaps it's divorce, or another area. She's
Mm-hmm.
struggling. She wants to move bravely. What would you say to her?
Give yourself grace. I think that sometimes we expect ourselves to know how to do things, have it all figured out, or to be perfect at things. And so to give yourself the grace to take whatever that small step is that you're comfortable with. It doesn't have to be, leaving a relationship. Sometimes it's working on a relationship that you're in as well. I'm remarried. I've been married for 15 years now. And, that's still work too, and I bring that knowledge and experience from the past. And that's part of what you can do then as well, is to give yourself the grace to take what you know, who you want to be, how you want to live, and to work with your situation in whatever direction you go in, and give yourself the grace to know, they're not permanent decisions. Communicating, being vulnerable is some of the scariest things you can do, but that's where you can really make the biggest gains and progress, because we realize when we're in our heads, that's where our limiting beliefs can then have that power, what I call the mean girls in my head. They get full audience of telling me what to do, how to think, how to feel. But when you start talking with others, you can break those down. You can get suggestions, reinforcement, support, all of those types of things to help you through those hard moments. So that grace, that vulnerability, and just believing in yourself and in your heart are some of the beginning steps.
Wonderful. Show yourself some grace, communicate, and tell those mean girls and mean voices in your head to be quiet. It is
Yeah.
time to silence the mean girl voices. I like that. Silence those mean girl voices because we have those mean girl voices and it's time to make them have a seat. We're not listening to
We
those
talk to
mean girl
ourselves
voices.
in a way we would never talk to anybody
Yeah,
else.
it's the
And
truth.
that's why we need to talk to other people who would be like,
Mhm.
no, absolutely not, and kind of put us back on that right path.
Yeah, and this is such an important area, the importance of community. And you made a point earlier, one of my favorite words, intentional. You chose to be intentional about who you were going to talk to, who you would let in. And then you said it, people you enjoy being around, people who build you up and encourage you. So, ladies, be intentional when it comes to your community. Surround yourself with women who are going to encourage and support you throughout your journey. And Daniela, you also mentioned not to be overwhelmed with drastic shifts, just taking that small step, one step at a time. It's lovely. Well, Daniela, how can people get in touch with you?
I have a podcast. It's on Spotify, Apple, everywhere you listen to podcasts. So Danielle, Bestie Life with Daniela. My website is www.bestielife.com. I'm also on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Pinterest. I love to connect. I love to chat, so definitely if you have questions of anything I said or want to just reach out and say, hey, I would love to connect and get to know you. I also
Excellent.
have some great free resources on my website if you're interested in some of those time management things, mindset things. Definitely check them out.
Oh, yes. So you all do not want to miss this opportunity to connect with Daniela Wolfe. She's been there, she's done that. She's continuing the journey to be an incredible individual. Connect with Daniela and get ready to transform your life. Daniela, thank you for showing up on the She Moves Bravely podcast.
Thank you so much, Dante. I had a great time.